In the early hours of November 4th, the war changed pace. Russia launched one of its largest combined drone and missile strikes against Ukrainian ports and energy infrastructure. Hours later, Kyiv responded with a series of deep, synchronized attacks on drone bases, refineries, and electrical hubs on Russian territory. The exchange not only increased the intensity of the fighting, but also exposed the fragility of the Russian rear at the onset of the cold season. The first piece of the puzzle came from Donetsk, where, according to Ukrainian sources, a precision strike on a logistics complex at the airport occupied since 2015 destroyed a large stockpile of Shahed drones and their warheads. The United 24 media platform claimed that up to 1,000 devices and some 1,500 stored warheads were neutralized, a figure that, if confirmed, would drastically reduce the capacity for massive attacks with low-cost UAVs in the coming months. Ukrainian military engineers had observed the pattern of assembly, storage, and launch preparation at that facility for weeks. The operation combined cruise missiles and attack drones with simultaneous target designation, and special operations sources reported hit rates of over 90%. These claims could not be independently verified, but they fit with the drop in the number of Shahed launches following repeated strikes on the supply chain in July and August. The second piece was located much further north, in the Kostroma region. Some 730 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, a nighttime attack caused a large fire at facilities linked to the Kostroma thermal power plant, one of the largest in the country in terms of installed capacity. Local authorities downplayed the incident, but independent media coverage and geolocated videos showed flames in the gas distribution area and partial supply cuts. The same wave simultaneously affected a key refinery in Volgograd, owned by Lukoil, leading to a temporary suspension of operations, according to reports published in Russia and picked up by the international press. According to the official toll, at least one person died, and several energy infrastructures and an airfield were damaged, with flight restrictions at a dozen Russian airports for several hours. For Moscow, the most sensitive blow was precisely the combination of targets: deep power generation, fuel refining, and military logistics. Striking Kostroma and Volgograd in the same time window is equivalent to forcing Russia to choose between protecting the front or shielding its energy network, a dilemma that becomes more costly with each night of war. Although the state agency avoided providing operational details, various specialized media outlets outside Russia pointed to shutdowns and damage that required technical inspections before refining processes could resume. The third part of the response was seen in Crimea. In Simferopol, a large fuel depot burned after a series of explosions that followed the passage of drones over the area. According to videos posted on local networks, the message was clear: the storage centers that feed military logistics on the peninsula are no longer untouchable. At the same time, the Ukrainian General Staff reported strikes against the Saratov refinery, the oil port of Feodosia, and several military targets in Donetsk, extending pressure on Russia's energy and military map from the Black Sea to the Volga. On November 6th, the sequence of events from the previous night was completed with another piece of news that reverberated in markets and insurance companies. Following a drone attack, the Volgograd refinery halted operations for assessment and safety reasons. According to information released by international media and sources with knowledge of the sector, since then, analysts have emphasized the systemic nature of these attacks. Forcing shutdowns not only reduces domestic supply, but also strains export logistics, raises insurance prices, and alters product mixes. Meanwhile, the drone war on electrical infrastructure took a qualitative leap forward in the Russian interior. In the Moscow region, several substations were hit on successive days, with reports of homes shaking and sporadic blackouts in areas surrounding the capital, according to local media. The pattern: low-signature drones, low-altitude flight, and multiple entry routes to overwhelm defenses forced the reconfiguration of anti-aircraft coverage and the distribution of batteries that had previously been concentrated near the front. The attacks on electrical hubs did not stop there. In Kursk, a series of UAV strikes against substations left the region in darkness, in one of the most widespread blackouts recorded in the energy war. Local reports spoke of prolonged interruptions and damage to distribution equipment, a sign that the target is no longer just generation, but also the flow between regions. Days later, the energy front reopened in Russia's industrial south. In Orsk, a drone from the Liu-TE series struck the refining complex in broad daylight, according to foreign-based media that followed the episode with photos and videos of the smoke cloud from several kilometers away. At the same time, another news report stated that Orsk had been attacked by a swarm of UAVs with visible damage. Even though pro-Kremlin sources were quick to deny critical consequences, the repetition of incidents targeting refining and transportation facilities indicates a change in Ukrainian strategy, striking during the day at more than one plant and on multiple axes. The map of the week would not be complete without Tuapse, on the Black Sea coast. There, after several previous episodes targeting its terminal and port area, tanker traffic decreased and, according to opposition media, at least one Russian support vessel was damaged. Tuapse is more than a port. It is a hub for crude oil and products bound for international routes. Its vulnerability increases risk premiums and pushes shipping companies to change ports of call or divert routes. On the Ukrainian side, November 4th left a familiar wound. A massive Russian attack with Iranian-made drones and ballistic cruise missiles on Odesa and Dnipropetrovsk, with civilian casualties and damage to ports and energy facilities. The synchronized response from Kiev, drone bases, thermal power plants, refineries, and depots sought more than reciprocity. It aimed to change the cost equation and force Moscow to spread its defense in depth on the eve of winter. That distribution is the backdrop to everything. Russian anti-aircraft layers, long, medium, and short range, were created to shoot down high-value aircraft and missiles, not swarms of slow, small aircraft with approach routes at the horizon. Moving batteries to cover substations near Moscow or plants such as Kostroma means fewer umbrellas on the line of contact. Leaving the batteries at the front means accepting that low-cost drones and OSINT planning can disrupt electricity distribution in key areas or start fires in refineries. There are not enough systems to shield everything at once. That is the strategic crack that Ukraine is exploiting. The partial results show that the energy blow is real. Fires and shutdowns in Volgograd, Lukoil, flames at Kostroma facilities, the Voronezh thermal plant severely damaged after being hit by 3 missiles, and extensive blackouts in Kursk after attacks on substations. The sum total describes a campaign that no longer targets only depots and tanks, but also seeks to disrupt the continuity of electricity supply in the European heart of Russia. Added to this is the oil vector of the Volga and the Caspian. Saratov, Engels, and Orsk itself were part of the latest round of strikes. The Ukrainian General Staff stated that both the Saratov NPZ refinery and the Feodosia oil terminal were attacked. In addition to military installations in Donetsk, striking supply, refining, and output terminal in close proximity multiplies the effect on stocks and logistics flows. What changes for the Russian war economy? First, the marginal cost of defending each strategic facility skyrockets because protection is no longer just a ring of missiles. It requires surveillance, dispersion of storage, redundancies, and firefighting equipment available 24/7. Second, each shutdown of a cracking or hydro treatment unit alters the blending plan, disrupts internal logistics, and reduces exportables. Third, insurers recalculate war risk premiums for ports, routes, and plants, with a direct impact on the competitiveness of Russian oil. The attacks and the official reaction, ranging from denial to minimal damage, do not prevent these price and coverage adjustments. In military terms, the drone-based campaign is a multiplier. If the Shahed reserve and its warheads in Donetsk have been severely depleted, as Kiev claims, Russia will have to rebuild its stockpile in deeper facilities or disperse it across multiple sites, with longer preparation times and higher logistical costs. This dispersion also makes it difficult to generate synchronized waves of 100+ drones in one night, which is precisely what Ukraine was seeking, to degrade the cadence of massive attacks and force smaller-scale, less effective attacks. At the same time, Ukraine extended the range and persistence of its long-range drones and their low-altitude flight profiles, demonstrating a robust local R&D chain and external collaborations. The existence of models with reinforced inertial guidance, robust navigation in degraded GNSS environments, and extended gliding profiles, along with a bolder use of daytime windows, Orsk, indicates confidence in the entire cycle: intelligence, penetration, attack, and damage assessment. On the Russian side, the response ranged from inflated reports of drones allegedly shot down to statements by governors denying disruptions in the face of flares visible for miles. This dissonance not only erodes the narrative of war far from home, It also introduces noise into decision-making. If the damage is not relevant, it takes longer to allocate resources to reconfigure defenses and make real repairs. The result is more exposure in the next wave. The social factor is also significant. Blackouts near Moscow and disruptions in Kursk, coupled with visible fires at large plants, turn a conflict presented as a special operation into an everyday phenomenon for millions of citizens. A nighttime attack forcing flights to be halted at 13 airports or partial power outages to be declared in entire regions changes public perception. The war ceases to be telegraphic and becomes tangible. Finally, the maritime vector reinforces the picture. Episodes such as those in Tuapse, with oil tankers adjusting activities and support vessels damaged, are signals that shipping companies and traders read. Even without a total blackout, recurring fires at terminals or rumors of mines and naval drones are enough to increase freight costs and shift routes. This uncertainty tax is in addition to what insurers already pay for sailing to ports at risk. The succession of attacks between November 4th and 11th outlines, in short, a three-pronged strategy. Degrade Russia's cheap artillery, Shahed, and its logistics chain. Disrupt the energy triangle, refining, terminals, electricity distribution. And force Moscow to strip the front to dress the rear. With each night of fires and outages, the dilemma worsens. If it concentrates its defense on the front, there will be more fires in its energy system. If it reinforces the rear, the front will be more exposed to Ukrainian drones, missiles, and ground assaults. The backdrop is that Russia is also continuing its campaign against Ukrainian cities, with casualties and damage to ports and electrical facilities underscoring the two-way nature of the winter energy war. But what is new this week is the depth and variety of the targets hit in Russia: Kostroma, Volgograd, Orsk, Saratov, Feodosia, Donetsk, and the difficulty of covering all the gaps at once. In the short term, more of the same can be expected. Drones with combined penetration profiles, specific daytime windows to maximize media impact, and repeated strikes on substations to force selective rationing in the Moscow metropolitan ring, especially at peak demand times at the end of the year. In the medium term, if Russian industry cannot shield its plants with redundancies and spare part stocks, the cost of maintaining fuel production, military and civilian, will increase, with effects on exports, taxes, and domestic supply. The war is increasingly being fought in laboratories, workshops, and substations. On this board, each fire counts twice, as a physical loss and as a message. The question is no longer whether there will be more deep strikes, but whether Russia will be able to spread its defense without losing momentum on the line of contact. For now, the evidence from these 2 weeks suggests that the cost of protecting everything is growing faster than the ability to replace what has been lost. That is precisely Ukraine's strategic gamble.